The cultural identity of Black Indians in colonial America is a deeply intricate tapestry woven from the threads of African and indigenous American histories. These identities were forged in the crucible of colonial oppression and survival, and over time, this unique community developed a distinct cultural presence that represented both resistance and resilience. Colonial America was a period of extreme hardship for both African and indigenous peoples, marked by displacement, slavery, and attempts at cultural erasure. However, from these adversities arose a vibrant blend of cultural practices, beliefs, and identities. The story of Black Indians in this era is one of survival, adaptation, and solidarity against common struggles. To fully appreciate the depth of Black Indian cultural identity, one must understand the initial contacts between Africans and indigenous Americans. Africans first arrived in the Americas not only as enslaved people, but also as free men who participated in expeditions with European explorers. Historical records show that as early as the 16th century, Africans and indigenous peoples began forming bonds that transcended colonial boundaries. These connections were forged through shared experiences, such as resistance to European settlers and a deep connection to the land. Many indigenous communities saw Africans as allies against the encroachment of European settlers. This initial alliance laid the groundwork for a cultural exchange that would become even more profound as the transatlantic slave trade intensified. In many cases, Africans who escaped enslavement sought refuge with indigenous tribes, where they found acceptance and freedom. Indigenous communities across the Southeast and other regions often welcomed these fugitives, granting them a chance to rebuild their lives away from the oppressive structures of colonial society. Over time, intermarriage became common, and a new cultural group began to emerge, combining African traditions with indigenous customs and values. This fusion of cultures, languages, and beliefs produced a rich heritage that was distinct from either African or indigenous cultures alone. One significant aspect of Black Indian cultural identity was the blending of spiritual practices. African and indigenous religious beliefs shared common themes, such as a reverence for ancestors, nature, and a belief in the spirit world. These shared values allowed for an organic integration of spiritual traditions, as Africans and indigenous peoples came together to practice rituals and ceremonies. Many indigenous tribes already practiced forms of ancestor worship and had a spiritual connection to the land, which resonated deeply with African beliefs. This syncretism gave rise to unique spiritual practices that incorporated elements of both traditions. For instance, the use of drums, dance, and communal rituals became hallmarks of Black Indian spirituality, embodying both African and indigenous influences. Language was another area where African and indigenous cultures intermingled. As members of different tribes and ethnicities came together, they developed a creolized form of communication, borrowing elements from various languages. In some cases, English served as a common medium, but it was often mixed with African and indigenous vocabulary, giving rise to dialects and speech patterns that were unique to Black Indian communities. Language played a critical role in preserving cultural identity, as it allowed Black Indians to retain a sense of heritage that transcended the confines of colonial society. Oral traditions flourished within these communities, with stories, songs, and proverbs serving as vehicles for cultural transmission. Through storytelling, Black Indians kept alive the histories and legends of both their African and indigenous ancestors, ensuring that their collective memory would endure. The cultural identity of Black Indians also manifested in their art, music, and crafts. Art forms often depicted themes of survival, nature, and spiritual symbols from both African and indigenous traditions. Weaving, beadwork, and pottery reflected indigenous techniques, while African influences were visible in the designs and symbols used. Music, in particular, was a powerful means of expression within Black Indian communities. Drumming, which held a central place in African culture, found a new home in indigenous ceremonies. The rhythmic patterns of African drumming were combined with indigenous songs and chants, creating a new genre of music that resonated deeply within the community. Dance was another important aspect, with African and indigenous styles merging into a form of expression that celebrated both freedom and unity. One of the key ways Black Indians navigated their complex identity was through community building. The unity of African and indigenous people was not only a matter of survival, but also an expression of cultural pride. Black Indians often lived in autonomous villages that operated independently from colonial rule. These communities were organized around principles of cooperation, mutual respect, and cultural preservation. Elders were highly respected, and their wisdom was sought in maintaining the traditions and values that defined the community. In these villages, Black Indians cultivated a lifestyle that honored both African and indigenous heritages. They practiced subsistence farming, fishing, and hunting, following traditional methods passed down through generations. These communities fostered a strong sense of kinship and solidarity, where individuals took collective responsibility for the well-being of all. In addition to the daily practices and traditions, Black Indians developed a unique perspective on freedom and autonomy. Having experienced the brutalities of slavery and colonial oppression, Black Indians were acutely aware of the importance of self-governance. They resisted European encroachment and often fought to protect their lands and way of life. Many Black Indian communities took part in resistance movements, such as the Seminole Wars, where they defended their homes and families from the threat of displacement and forced assimilation. These acts of defiance were not only about land, but also about preserving a way of life that was threatened by European expansion. The Black Indians' struggle for sovereignty was an extension of their cultural identity, a testament to their determination to live on their own terms. Black Indians also made significant contributions to American history through their participation in wars and rebellions. During the American Revolutionary War, Black Indians fought alongside both American and British forces, depending on who they believed would grant them greater freedom. Their involvement in these conflicts showcased their desire for autonomy and an end to oppression. By participating in these battles, Black Indians made a statement about their place in American society, a society that often sought to marginalize them but could not ignore their resilience and strength. Their courage and strategic acumen earned them respect, though often grudging, from both allies and adversaries. As the 19th century approached, the cultural identity of Black Indians faced new challenges. The Indian Removal Act of 1830 and the expansion of slavery threatened to dismantle the communities they had worked so hard to build. Forced relocations, particularly the Trail of Tears, displaced countless indigenous and Black Indian communities from their ancestral lands. Despite these hardships, Black Indians continued to resist, holding on to their cultural practices and adapting to new environments. Their resilience became a defining characteristic, as they found ways to rebuild and maintain their cultural identity in the face of relentless adversity. Even when displaced, Black Indians carried with them their stories, rituals, and customs, ensuring that their heritage would survive despite the forces arrayed against them. The legacy of Black Indians in colonial America is a testament to the power of cultural fusion and solidarity. In a world that sought to divide and oppress, Black Indians created a cultural identity that honored both African and indigenous heritage. Their story is one of adaptation, strength, and an unbreakable bond to both land and spirit. This heritage has left an indelible mark on American culture, influencing everything from language and music to art and spirituality. Today, descendants of Black Indians continue to celebrate this unique identity, honoring the sacrifices and resilience of their ancestors. Their cultural identity remains a living testament to the enduring strength of the human spirit in the face of unimaginable odds.